I'm going to unmute. Yeah?
Yeah, and then just cut to yourself.
Cool. Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. We are in team coverage of this breaking news, a decision made on whether Fani Willis will be disqualified as the lead prosecutor in the case against the former president and his allies. And just a short time ago, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee announced his decision and issued his ruling. Essentially, to sum it up, it is that Miss Willis must step aside from the Trump case, or she has another option, remove Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Of course, just kind of for some context here, the allegations are of impropriety based on an admitted relationship that Ms. Willis had with Mr. Wade, a romantic relationship. Mr. Trump and his co-defendants argued that because of that impropriety, Ms. Willis and her office should be removed from prosecuting the case, and that all the charges should be dismissed. And it's a bit of a split decision here. The charges remaining in place for the most part, apart from the 6 that were dismissed earlier this week by the judge. But again, this announcement that Ms. Willis must either step aside or Mr. Wade must be removed. Let's go to my colleague, Rebecca Schramm, who is live covering the latest on this. Rebecca, what can you share with us?
Well, Joy, there's no question that given this choice, that DA Willis will remain on the case and that it will be Wade who steps aside. She's a constitutional state officer, so that means trying to get rid of her is a lot harder than trying to get rid of someone who was appointed. She was elected to office here in the state of Georgia, specifically Fulton County, and so therefore the judge's hands were tied in some ways. But I want to read to you what I found very interesting from his order. He said, "This finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this tremendous lapse in judgment or the unprofessional manner of the district attorney's testimony during the evidentiary hearing. Rather, it is the undersigned's opinion that Georgia law does not permit the finding of an actual conflict for simply making bad choices, even repeatedly, and it is the trial court's duty to confine itself to the relevant issues and applicable law properly brought before it." But listen to this. Here's something he says that I want you to pay attention. He says, "Other forums or sources of authority, such as the General Assembly, the Georgia State Ethics Commission, the State Bar of Georgia, the Fulton County Board of Commissions, or the voters of Fulton County may offer feedback on any unanswered questions that linger." What he is saying here is, I may not be able to kick her off of this case, but there are other entities that can certainly look into her behavior and determine whether, say, for example, the state bar should pull her bar license. So this is very damning for District Attorney Fani Willis. She may have won in this particular court opinion. In other words, she's able to stay on the case, but she's bruised. I mean, this is a problem for her. She's got the judge is spelling it out right here. He also essentially slammed several other findings that the defendants brought forth. One being the speech she gave a couple of days before, maybe it was the day before MLK Day, at a historically black church. And I want to read to you a tweet by Steve Sadow. He is the lead defendant here in Georgia for Donald Trump. It says, "While respecting the court's decision, we believe that it did not afford appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade, including the financial benefits, testifying untruthfully about when their personal relationship began, as well as Willis's extrajudicial MLK church speech, where she played the race card and falsely accused the defendants and their counsel of racism." That is Steve Sadow, the lead attorney for Donald Trump. So it is clear, as he goes on to say in this tweet, that they're going to use all legal options available as we continue to fight to end this case. It's clear that attorneys will appeal, Joy, and we expect that will drag the case out for quite some time. I'll send it back to you.
apologize for the audio issue there. I failed to unmute myself there. I apologize, multitasking. But thank you so much to Rebecca Schramm reporting live there and following the latest on this case. I do want to let our viewers know that at any moment now I'm anticipating having a very special guest join us, a former colleague of mine from my time at Court TV, Josh Schiffer, who is a very a prominent criminal defense attorney and tries many cases at the Fulton County Courthouse, and even has worked before Judge McAfee. So he's going to share some of his insights on this, and we're going to talk a lot about what's next. What are the next steps in moving forward, right? So obviously here what we've learned is that Miss Willis has two choices. She can remove herself from the case, or essentially remove Mr. Wade from the case, who she had a romantic relationship with, an admitted romantic relationship with. But as Rebecca has explained, and as we've explained to you, the charges are staying. The charges are not going anywhere. 6 of the charges were dismissed a little bit earlier this week. That was decided by Judge Scott McAfee. You're looking at video of him right now. But there were 41 counts on the table. So still, most of the counts, the charges are in place, 35, and the prosecution will continue. And like Rebecca said, overall it is a win for Miss Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, that the prosecution will go forward. She can stay on this case, but not without some cost to her, either removal of Mr. Wade or herself, and the speculation is that Mr. Wade would be removed. And apart from that, as Rebecca touched on, there are now numerous investigations into Miss Willis, and there's a possibility that she could experience some sanctions as well for this impropriety, alleged impropriety, and to some extent admitted impropriety because of this relationship that she had with a special prosecutor that she appointed to lead the investigation. And also very noteworthy that just yesterday, also that new development from the governor, Governor Kemp, signing a bill into law which would essentially increase oversight for prosecutors, including district attorneys. And many have said, that bill is essentially that agency is essentially kind of a partisan group, and that they're trying to conduct a witch hunt, essentially, with Miss Willis as a target. But that's something debatable. Nevertheless, it's very clear that the scrutiny has been increased as a result of this relationship, the filing, which really began with Miss Ashley Merchant, who represents Michael Roman, another party on this massive RICO indictment. And then it was adopted by Steve Sadow, who is the Georgia attorney for Mr. Trump. So obviously a lot of scrutiny for Miss Willis here. And in that regard, Mr. Trump and his team have been successful to some extent in kind of flipping the script and turning the attention off of themselves, turning the scrutiny off of themselves and onto the prosecutors. So, it's something that we're following very closely. But, something else that developed as well just yesterday, that this news that Miss Willis could be charged with contempt of Congress. And, we'd been awaiting this decision. The nation had been awaiting this decision on whether she could remain on the case for the past few weeks, really. But as this decision was, kind of hanging in the balance, the Judiciary Committee, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, threatened to hold Ms. Willis in contempt if she does not comply with a subpoena. And just kind of sharing with you a little bit of it, this was really led by Republican Congressman from Ohio, Jim Jordan, who's really sparred with Ms. Willis and has frequently criticized her investigation into Mr. Trump. And he and his committee sent a letter to Willis demanding she turn over a long list of requested information related to the indictment of Mr. Trump and several of his allies. And then, just yesterday, threatened to hold her in contempt if she does not comply with the subpoena. Part of the language that he wrote is, quote, "While you have indicated that additional documents may be forthcoming in response to the committee's subpoena, the committee has yet to receive any additional responsive materials in the 3 weeks since your initial response." It goes on to say, "Accordingly, the committee expects that you will produce all responsive documents to the subpoena in the categories prioritized by the committee no later than 12 p.m. on March 28th, 2024. If you fail to do so, the committee will consider taking further action, such as the invocation of contempt of Congress proceedings." So heavy potential repercussions there for Ms. Willis if she does not comply with the subpoena here from this committee. And another major story that we're following as well is the weather, because we are in a first alert weather day today. My colleague Rodney Harris, just kind of, I do want to let everyone know this is still, we're still keeping our eyes on what's happening, with the Trump investigation, the Trump prosecution, and Ms. Willis. And like I said, we have an attorney on his way here. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's go to Mr. Harris and talk about this forecast.
So, Joy, I'm going to keep you here for just a second because just so everybody knows, we're really doing this in real time. There's so many developing situations. Am I ending this after this weather update, or we're going to come back to you?
Oh, we're gonna go in continuous coverage. So come back to me.
Okay,
and
cool.
Anybody wants to listen, we are gonna break it down for you. I have an attorney joining me.
Cool.
We're gonna talk about
Continuing coverage.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break from that to talk about our first alert weather day. As Joy mentioned, we do have severe thunderstorms actually moving through North Georgia right now, so it's very important that we get this information to you. What you see on the right-hand side of your screen, that is first alert radar that is active right now. I'm going to zoom in to first alert radar, give you an idea of what's happening here in metro Atlanta. We have one severe thunderstorm warning that's active, and that is for Bartow County. It's that yellow box that you see. I will point out, though, that there is a little Boeing segment, the red that you see in Paulding County. As that moves east-southeast into Cobb County, that can produce some gusty winds. So just a heads up for those of you in Cobb County, especially southwest Cobb County like Mableton. This stuff is moving into metro Atlanta as we speak. There's some good news. Even though we're seeing rain and we're seeing lightning, this isn't nearly as strong now as it was like an hour ago. As it was moving into west and northwest Georgia, we had a whole lot of severe thunderstorm warnings. Now we're down to just one severe thunderstorm warning. So while we can still see an occasional strong storm, this is just not nearly as strong. And that's good news, but you're definitely going to get wet. The rain is in metro Atlanta right now. So I want to walk you through the latest timeline. This forecast model, we call it our high-resolution forecast model. It updates every hour, so we're constantly feeding you new information here. And as you can see, from now until 11 o'clock till noon, this rain and lightning will continue. So if you planned on heading out for lunch in metro Atlanta, it is a first alert. You will definitely get wet. Here's some good news. The leading edge of this stuff, the heavy rain, is moving out much faster. So this is 3 o'clock, and we're seeing the heaviest rain south and east of Atlanta. So the reason why this is important is because if you're picking up the kiddos from school, the impact isn't going to be as high at 3 o'clock. Now, if you're in the southeastern portions of the area like Edenton, Putnam County, Jasper County, Butts County, Morgan County, Lamar, Pike, Upson counties, Troup County, you could still see some storms at 3, but it does look like Atlanta northward, the heavy rain will at least be over. So after 3 o'clock, as we go through the rest of the day, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock this evening, we will continue to see spotty showers. So the showers won't come to a complete end today. There will be spotty showers out there, but you can keep your plans tonight. The showers won't be heavy like they are initially. We're not going to see really any storms tonight. So if you have anything to do tonight, you'll be fine. As you're driving home from work, you should be fine. There will still be spotty showers, but not a huge impact. So our first alert will continue probably for until about 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. Then after 4 o'clock, we'll be able to drop the first alert with showers continuing, just not nearly as much coverage as what we're seeing right now. So the real high impact is right now until about 3 o'clock this afternoon for metro Atlanta. Again, heavy rain, lightning, and even though it's weakening, an occasional severe storm is not impossible with some gusty winds. I do want to bring up, and I'll bring myself back on screen here, talk about the weekend here a little bit, because if you want to get out on Saturday, Saturday is looking much better. In fact, we've removed the rain chance altogether for Saturday. So we'll see some peaks of sun maybe Saturday afternoon a little bit. It'll still be mostly cloudy, but no rain whatsoever for Metro Atlanta on Saturday. Sunday's a little different. We do have showers in your forecast Sunday, especially from Atlanta southward. The coverage is about 40%. It's not a first alert weather day, but there will be some showers south of I-20 throughout the day on St. Patrick's Day. So if you're north of Atlanta, you should be in better shape. If you're south of Atlanta, watch out for those showers. And, of course, we'll continue to keep you up to date on that St. Patrick's Day forecast going into the weekend. So there you have it. That's a live look at First Alert Radar. Again, rain and storms are moving into Metro Atlanta right now. They are weakening, so not as many severe thunderstorms as we saw earlier, but that will still be possible, and we're going to kind of rock with this up until about 3 o'clock today. So just be prepared for this as this activity continues to move in. Some good rain continues, by the way, in the mountains. So the severe weather threat has ended for you in the mountains, but you are still seeing rain. Ella J, Hiawassee, Blue Ridge, even Rome, like you're going to continue to see rain. The leading edge is what we were concerned about, and we'll continue to be concerned about that leading edge, the front end of the rain, as it continues to move toward the south and east. So that's a look at your forecast. That's what we're looking at right now. We are we're feeling good about the fact that the number of warnings have started to decrease, but we're going to keep watching this for you. Myself, First Alert Meteorologist Ella Dorsey, and First Alert Meteorologist Cutter Martin are all here right now, and we're going to keep you up to date on this as we continue with our First Alert Weather Day throughout the rest of the morning. At this point, that one severe thunderstorm warning that we were watching has cleared, so we are at this moment, at this very second, we are not under an active warning. That's certainly good. But we'll watch. We'll keep you up to date. If we have any new warnings, we'll hop back on. But in the meantime, we'll bring Joy back in as she continues to bring you continuing coverage here this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rodney. And I want to let everybody know. Sorry. So normally I'm just going to have this conversation in front of you guys. Maria, should I work the computer or should I? Okay, I'm going to take over the computer for a moment. So we do a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of multitasking over here on the Atlanta News First Plus desk. So apologize if I ever seem a little distracted because I've got computers on each side of me and audio board that I'm trying to navigate while I'm looking at this decision from Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee. So I just want to let you know that I understand our attorney, legal analyst guest, Josh Schiffer, has just arrived at the building. So he's going to come in to the newsroom any moment now. And we're going to talk about really what this means, this huge decision by Scott McAfee. And essentially what it means is that Miss Willis has a decision, that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has a decision to make. She can either stay on this case, she's the lead prosecutor on this case, or she can remove herself, and the only way that she can stay on is by removing Mr. Wade, who she had a relationship. So she gets to stay on the case if she removes Mr. Wade, the special prosecutor that she appointed. If she leaves Mr. Wade on the case, she's got to step down. So it's one or the other. And remember, just kind of backtracking a little bit, we brought you the disqualification hearings of Miss Willis, and that was conducted by Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee. And the allegations set forth by the defendants, Mr. Trump and his allies, were that there was an improper relationship between Miss Willis and Mr. Wade, and not only that it was impacting the prosecution, that Miss Willis essentially misused public funds, going on trips, romantic getaways with Mr. Wade. Those were the allegations. And that there was a clear conflict of interest and that she crossed ethical boundaries. So what the defense asked for was essentially everything. They wanted all the charges to be dropped, all 41 charges to be dropped, and they wanted Miss Willis, Mr. Wade, and her team to be removed from the case. Obviously, on the other side, the prosecution side, Miss Willis and Mr. Wade wanted to stay on the case. They wanted to continue prosecuting. They wanted to keep all the charges. What the judge delivered today was essentially a compromise decision. Nobody got everything they wanted. Each side got a little bit of what they wanted. So there was a little bit of foreshadowing earlier this week because Mr. McAfee, the judge here, let me show you his video so you know who we're talking about. This is Mr. McAfee. Fairly young judge, but, it has really been very diligent in his rulings and, wrote a very extensive decision when he came out with his ruling on this. But he essentially said the charges are sticking. Earlier this week, he did drop 6 of the 41 charges, dismissed 6 of the 41 charges against Mr. Trump and his allies, but left the other 35. And that kind of signaled to a lot of people, a lot of legal watchers, that the charges were going to stick, because why would he go through the trouble of writing this decision earlier in the week about dropping some of the charges if he were going to drop all of them. So we kind of knew at that point, legal observers kind of knew, okay, a lot of these charges are going to stick. They're not going to go anywhere. What we didn't know is if Miss Willis was going to stay on the case, be allowed to stay on the case, or if she was going to be pulled off. And that's the decision that we just learned about just this morning, a little bit, just around 9 o'clock this morning is when that decision dropped. And what we've learned is, yeah, Miss Willis gets to stay on the case, but not keep her romantic interest on the case at the same time. She's got to choose her or him. So that was essentially the decision that she's forced to make. I'm just pulling up some different videos for you as we talk about this. And so, just a little bit of context here. Miss Willis was presented with this decision because Mr. Wade, billed more than $728,000 in legal fees to county taxpayers and helped pay for trips that he took with the district attorney. So that is where this kind of allegation of conflict of interest, misuse of funds, arose from. That, the allegation was that, we heard Mr. Trump say it, essentially saying that he called Mr. Wade the boyfriend. And the allegations are that they were using taxpayer funds to finance their romantic getaways and so forth. And again, Mr. Wade did bill $728,000 in legal fees to county taxpayers. Now, many people say actually for the work that he's done, it was quite, in line with what he has done. Some people say it wasn't, and that, there's a conflict of interest there. There's also been some discussion about the timeline of the relationship. Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade have said that they did not begin any sort of romantic relationship until after he began working on the case. That he wasn't appointed because of the romantic relationship, that is something that developed a little bit later on. But even so, clearly Judge McAfee has called it a quote, tremendous lapse in judgment, this relationship, and said that Ms. Willis behaved in a quote, unprofessional manner when she testified at an evidentiary hearing. And, has raised concerns about not just impropriety, but the appearance of impropriety. So, hence this kind of fork in the road for Ms. Willis, where she has to make this choice. Do I want to stay on the case? And if I do, I need to remove Mr. Wade. Or if I want to step down, then Mr. Wade can stay on the case. It's got to be one or the other. And additionally, we saw earlier this week that 6 of the 41 counts were also dropped. So what happens next? And that's something we're going to talk about with my attorney guest, Josh Schiffer, who is on his way here right now. We're going to kind of break down what we expect going forward. I want to see in the meantime, Maria, a lot of you know Maria Moreau, who does a lot of the reporting here from the OTT desk. Do we have any sound from recently? I'd love to be able to share that from with our viewers, because we've just heard from various different parties on this. Okay, I'm going to let you listen. Let's play this. Let's see what we have here.
By any of the parties. Be considered. Any remedy that is imposed by Judge McAfee can be appealed by any of the parties. It's going to be appealed just like any other ruling from the court. However, the moment you begin an appeal, it can stop the case as you wait for the appeal to be considered.
U.S. Congressman Jim Jordan yesterday sending a letter to Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, threatening her with contempt of Congress charges should she not turn over all of the requested documents to the U.S. House Judiciary Committee. Jim Jordan and Fani Willis have been sparring with each other verbally by mail and certified letter now for several months, back and forth over her prosecution and indictment of former President Donald Trump. And now we have today's ruling, and whatever appeals may be filed moving forward, not to mention the little drama that we had yesterday at the Georgia House of Representatives and at the State Senate with the unveiling of the portrait of House Speaker David Ralston, something that's one of our most read stories on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. But I think what's really very interesting coming out of this morning's ruling is that we've already have a comment from Donald Trump's lead Georgia attorney, Steve Sadow, on our website with our main bar in the story that is housing this live stream right now. where he was not at all completely satisfied, obviously, with the ruling. Donald Trump's Georgia attorneys and all of Donald Trump's supporters here in Atlanta, Georgia, and across the nation were strongly advocating for DA Fani Willis's disqualification, complete and total, from the case. That didn't happen. And Steve Sadow's comment was very telling in the fact that he is still very critical of the speech that Willis made during the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday celebration back in January, where she spoke at a huge congregation at Atlanta's largest African American church, Big Bethel AME, where she was very critical of attempts to impugn her reputation over the prosecution of this case. Now, in Judge McAfee's ruling, this hasn't been noticed so far, but we're going to be focusing on it more digitally later today on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. McAfee wrote that perhaps a gag order, not his total exact words, but perhaps an order prohibiting further public comment from Fani Willis on this investigation might be appropriate. And we're kind of speculating here in the newsroom that Steve Sadow, with the comments that he made earlier today, specifically denouncing that speech that the DA gave back in January, we could be seeing future requests for prohibition on public comment, otherwise known as gag orders, perhaps coming from Donald Trump's camp in the next few hours, days, or weeks. So this is a story that is far, far from over.
Absolutely, Tim. And so you mentioned the comments from Steve Sadow, and I'm going to read some of that statement, actually, because I think it's something I think a lot of our viewers are going to be interested in. He says, while respecting the court's decision, we believe the court did not afford appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade, including the financial benefits, testifying untruthfully about when their personal relationship began, as well as Willis's extrajudicial MLK church speech, where she played the race card and falsely accused the defendants and their counsel of racism. This is all written by Steve Sadow, one of Mr. Trump's attorneys in this Georgia case. He goes on to say, quote, "We will use all legal options available as we continue to fight to the end, fight to end this case, which should never even have been brought in the first place." So, I mean, honestly, it's not surprising, in my opinion, it's not surprising that, this is Mr. Trump's attorney, and he's going to fight tooth and nail. He's going to do everything he can to get everything. And I was talking about that in the beginning. They want everything. The defense side wants everything. They want all the charges dropped. They want Miss Willis removed. They want Mr. Wade removed. They want that whole office removed. They want this whole thing to be gone. And they're sticking with that. And we've been talking a bit about how this was essentially a split decision by Mr. McAfee, that Miss Willis and the prosecution side didn't get everything they wanted. The defense side clearly didn't get everything that they wanted, but it's a split decision.
It is a split decision. No one got everything that they wanted, like you've been saying, since we went online with this live stream. And if you're following the case nationally, I mean, we're already seeing outrage on both sides of the political spectrum. Marjorie Taylor Greene has a tweet out just lambasting Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee as being too timid, corrupt, what have you. We're seeing supporters of Fani Willis also saying that this was the best ruling that she could get. Scott McAfee is a fairly young jurist and has donated in the past to Fani Willis's campaign. But from an overall standpoint, if you're reading it simply in black and white, everything that McAfee is laying out has some truth and some validation behind it. He's acknowledging the images of impropriety between Fani Willis and her special prosecutor, whom she has acknowledged a previous romantic relationship with, Nathan Wade. Scott McAfee is allowing the DA to remain on the case if Nathan Wade steps aside. Now, what we're waiting for right now is any comment from the DA's office as far as whether or not that special prosecutor will indeed step aside. We can't really imagine any scenario where Fani Willis will choose to keep him on the case and thus have her own office recused or her own personal involvement recused. I can't really imagine a scenario where that's going to happen, but that's the next step in terms of what we're watching for.
And then I'm just saying, I mean, the people are, there's all kinds of opinions on here. I'm reading our YouTube stream right here, and I hear everything from lock her up to, it's not a crime to spend your own money the way that you want. I'm hearing all kinds of just different feedback on this, and there is an array of opinions on it. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear that no matter what the judge ruled, no one was going to be happy. I mean, not everyone's going to be happy.
And when you run for public office or you run for a judicial seat, this is what you get. You're putting yourself out there. No one has forced Scott McAfee to run for Fulton County Superior Court judge or Fani Willis to run for DA. When you run for office, this is what you get. And
You're in
this
the public eye.
you're in the public eye. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So it takes a certain amount of moxie and a certain amount of emotional and intestinal fortitude to want to put yourself out there in the public eye and in such a highly politicized environment. We were talking about this earlier this week. Georgia is arguably the most divided Republican state in the nation. You have Governor Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, both of whom have gained national recognition for their pushback from former President Donald Trump on allegations of impropriety in the 2020 presidential election. You have Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, others, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman from Northwest Georgia's 14th District, who are ardent Trump supporters. We're looking at a 2026 Republican gubernatorial race, a wide open seat that will have Burt Jones, Brad Raffensperger, Chris Carr, possibly others running for governor. So we're going to just see how strong the Republican coalition is here in Georgia regarding the most polarizing central figure in all of American politics, 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. We're going to pick up our coverage later on this afternoon here on Atlanta News First Plus. And if anything develops, we advise you to just sign up for alerts. You can get alerts sent right to your mobile, right to your phone using our Atlanta News First mobile news app. But we are going to continue our team coverage. We're gathering a reaction from everyone involved, various lawmakers as well, and just, this is a story that isn't going away. As we know, any party to this has the right to appeal the decision that just came down. And I think we can anticipate that. I mean, Steve Sadell said as much. So, all right. Well, thanks so much, Tim Darnell, for joining us. Thank you to our viewers for joining us. Keep it right here on Atlanta News First Plus.